Well, it's 9 o'clock, and so we're going to go ahead and get ready to get moving this morning. Our music still wanted to play, so that was exciting. For those of you who are here with us this morning, thank you for joining us. And we have a great guest. We're still waiting on her to join us, but we have a great guest this morning. Maria Seidler will be joining us from Legal Overwatch for Parents' Rights. And she's going to be talking with us about our case, ROPE's case, that she enjoined with us, and Payne County parent, Brice Chaffin. And we're going to be talking about that here in just a little bit. But until Maria joins us, what did we do last night, Jules?
We went to an awesome Moms for Liberty meeting in Canadian County. Ryan Walters was the speaker. I thought he did a great job. We still just have one topic that we disagree with him on, and that's school choice. But the crowd was great. The questions were great. We didn't have any disruptions, as you know, a few people were saying that they were going to come and mess up our meeting, and that didn't happen. And Liberty Church is a great venue. I talked to my friend Linda, who I was able to connect them with, and she told me last night how very glad she is that Moms for Liberty is meeting at their church. So I think that is that is a blessing both ways. They're a blessing for Liberty Church, and Liberty Church is a blessing for them.
Well, you know, one of the problems that we've always had, I mean, always, not just ROPE, but I mean, any organization has had the same problem. That is, we have a terrible time finding places to meet.
Yes.
So it's just a blessing when a church or, you know, other venue steps out and says, you know, hey, we would really love to be able to host you. Then that's, you know, that's what we need to be. I mean, we should take them up on it every opportunity we have. So I'm trying to figure out how to stream to Rumble, because we're still having problems with that. I just got a thing just a second ago from Rumble themselves saying we're having problems streaming your site. So I'm going, what are we going to do? Oh, and Dana says, yes, a huge blessing. They've been supportive of us the entire way. Oh, and she says, how's the lamb? So for those of you that don't know, yes, I have is she? There's Maria. Excellent. We have a baby lamb in our sunroom. And I am trying to feed and take care of a baby lamb. And oops. And then Michael just said, we're not streaming on Twitter. And so, Michael, I had to turn off Twitter to get Rumble. And Rumble now won't live stream. So, so I guess we'll get out of
and YouTube.
Correct. So I'm going to go ahead and stream us into Twitter. since then we'll at least have another one. So hi, Twitter users who didn't see us originally. It's just a process getting used to all of the technology. So I know we've got a lot to talk about. We're already at 9:05. So if you want to hear about the lamb, you'll have to message me later, because I would like to bring on Maria. And there she is. Good morning, Maria. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm so excited that you're launching this podcast. It'll be great.
Well,
there's so much politicking going on, and you guys have been at the forefront for years and years. And I think you have a lot of wisdom to share with a lot of our new activists. So I'm excited.
Thank you. Yes, I think if we could figure out how to get Rumble in on this thing and do it consistently, we would be gold. Otherwise, now I'm just having to go back in later on and upload the videos that we've already done. So Maria, let's just start out, because I know we're going to be busy for the entire hour talking about this. And I'm glad for that. So tell us a little bit about Legal Overwatch for Parents' Rights, and give us just kind of some background.
Of Legal Overwatch?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I've been interested in education even before I became a lawyer, because that was what I was going to do my dissertation on when I was working on my graduate degree. And it just got re-enlightened when I was watching what my grandchildren were doing, and of course, kind of seeing the state of Oklahoma's education. It just breaks my heart. So, as I was watching the state of education become more political, I believe in the rule of law, and I picked up the school code and started just reading them. And we have a lot of good laws already in place that should be guiding where education's going, but they're just being ignored. And I thought, well, it doesn't do as much good to be passing more laws if we're not even getting the benefit of some good legislation already enacted. So I started thinking, because I'd been an energy lawyer all my career, but here I am retired with some legal skills. So I thought, what can I do? I started thinking about starting a solo pro bono practice, and I came up with the name Legal Overwatch from the military term. Someone that's sitting higher up, and got the back of the soldiers carrying out a mission. And it just seemed to fit what somebody could do with the courts. So I started Legal Overwatch for Parents' School Rights. And I owe so much to ROPE, because they really were supportive of this concept. And you all brought me that first case with, Brice Chaffin, and stood up to become a plaintiff in that case to help us get the case started. And I just think that your insight into saying this is the case that we should start with did pick the perfect case to highlight one of the things that are wrong in our education system. And that is the lack of the Christian principles that should be guiding how we approach the education of our children. So.
Well, and I guess that's the thing. And thank you. You're very sweet, but I kind of think it was a God thing, because I remember you and I had just talked about, well, what's our first case going to be and what should we do? And we were thinking about that. And I was on Facebook kind of as a fluke, because I was doing something else, and Brice's feed came up in my feed, which is not normal, because for some reason the algorithm didn't have Brice's feed, showing up in mine. And there was Brice talking about how he got ejected from the Stillwater Public Schools board meeting, and how he was escorted out by the police. And I thought, ding, ding, ding. So I kind of give that, you can't even really give that to me, because I think that was a big guy and not really so much me. But
you and I have talked before that it just seemed like God has really been guiding us in this lawsuit to set it up to get the maximum benefit.
Yeah.
So even though we haven't won yet, I have a lot of faith that we will.
Yeah. Jenny, tell the whole story of. Do we have a? If we don't have the clip, let's at least tell the story of exactly what happened to Brice.
So Brice was, well, Stillwater Public Schools was holding it was just their regular monthly school board meeting. But this meeting was a little bit more emotionally charged, because they were having a discussion, because Stillwater Public Schools, like so many public schools in Oklahoma and across the nation, which is how you know it's a ploy and it's not just a thing. It's a social ploy. So many schools are fighting this boys in the girls' bathroom, the transgender issue. I feel like a girl today, therefore I may use the girls' bathroom. And Stillwater Public Schools was had a policy, like so many did, that basically said it was a quiet policy, but it was still a policy that said, males can use the female restroom if they identify as female. So it got out into the community that this was happening in Stillwater Public Schools, and Brice, along with a number of community members, actually went to that school board meeting, and there was a large section of the LGBTQ community there as well, and it was again very emotionally charged, and Brice had 3 minutes to talk and explain why it was that he was not in favor of a policy to allow boys and girls restrooms. But Brice is a godly man, and so he predicated his response on what God says about that particular issue. And when he actually quoted they gave him some time, because he was having a little bit of a trouble, kind of finding his footing at the beginning, but that doesn't matter. They have 3 minutes to speak. That's not an issue. Fiddle around all you want to get to your topic. Who should care? So anyway, he, kind of finally he got on his topic, and then he spoke direct scripture. And it was at that point that the school board members started, saying, you need to stop, you need to be quiet, you need to stay on topic, and interrupting him until finally the interim school board president at the time basically said, okay, you're done, you're out of here. And then they went so far as to get one of the Stillwater police to escort Mr. Chaffin from the podium outside. And so Brice posted
peacefully reading scripture.
Oh yes, absolutely. Very peaceful.
Romans, which if you've been, which is the, I guess, foundational scripture for the issues we have around sexual practices. So
they basically escorted him from the room by the police, and then Brice posted that particular video to his Facebook page, and that's where I saw it. And so I sent it to Maria, and I said, "This is it." And so then what happened from there, Maria?
Well, when trying to structure how we wanted to file a lawsuit, I came across the Oklahoma Religious Freedom Act, and I tried to do some research around that legal research around that act, and there's hardly I'm trying to think if I even found a case. If I did, it was sort of in the prison context, and it was like for the Muslims trying to get certain kind of religious rights within the prison.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's the only case I can remember finding. And this is a great act. It includes any kind of religious complaint under the U.S. Constitution, under Oklahoma Constitution, as well as under the Religious Freedom Act itself. And I just don't think that Oklahomans realize how they have a better constitutional provision for religious freedom, religious practices, than I think that's in the U.S. Constitution. But of course, everybody, the first thing you think if you have a, you feel like you're being discriminated against because of your religion or a religious practice, you run to federal court and you run to, and you use the U.S. Constitution. But I was really proud to see what Oklahoma has. And we ought to, I think people ought to take a look at that and stand up for it more, because it gives you the right to practice your religion and requires others to be perfectly tolerant, not just a little bit tolerance, not just a 50% tolerance, and you can get mad. You were supposed to be perfectly tolerant of another person's religious practice. And go ahead, Jen.
No, there were so many provisions in that law that you brought up that you made the point several times, because I want to kind of stick on that law for a second, just because you're right. People need to know this, because I firmly believe, and I'm not the only one who actually believes that. And I think if you see the trend, like on our Facebook page, Julia, we'll have to have Julia mention what's going on our Facebook page, because it's actually a similar type of thing that what we're talking about. But you, in that particular law, there were several provisions that actually you were able to use to that actually oh, there was a feedback there and it kind of freaked me out. Sorry. That's okay. That's okay. I was like, how am I talking twice? So oh gosh, I'm stumbling around a little bit. I would just rather you take it. You were talking about several provisions in that specific law that made it so easy for people in Oklahoma to be able to express their religious freedom without worrying about getting sued and paying court costs.
Yeah. I particularly liked what they did with the Religious Freedom Act, and Jenny can tell you, because I've been her ear more often than she probably appreciated, that one of the things we're missing in a lot of our legislation is that waiver of sovereign immunity, which means as long as the legislature doesn't say you can sue, the state, one of the state agencies, you can't sue. And we have that problem with the school board claiming that sovereign immunity and telling you, that's fine. You may think you have that right, but you don't have a right to sue us in court on this. But the Religious Freedom Act took that on head on and put a provision in there that said, if you are burdened by some governmental action, if your religious practice, your freedom to express and express in practice and not just speech, by some agent's governmental entity, then you have the right to go to court and sue. And they did. The school board's attorneys did go in and try to claim that we didn't have a right to sue because of another act called the Governmental Tort Claims Act. But because that provision was in the statute explicitly, we won that issue, and they didn't get. We were not. Our case was not dismissed. Building on top of that, which is a really good public policy. And there is some this same policy you can find down under constitutional suits in federal court. There's a public policy that you want to encourage people. You need to give them the right, not just the right to sue, but to have rights to attorney fees. Because one of the biggest blocks to lawsuits, access to the court, is having to come up with a $300 or $500 an hour attorney attorney fees.
Right.
And generally in the way it works under what we call the American law is that each party pays their own attorney fees. But for most parents, even middle class, the when we have to pay it, if you have to pay the attorney fees because you lose, that $300 an hour attorney for the other side really, adds up. So most people, it doesn't pay to go after the school board unless you really have actual damages, okay, you're in the school parking lot and the bus driver, rams your car. Well, then you got some measurement of attorney fees and you might go in and sue them. But for Brice, I mean, you got some embarrassment maybe through the video and being cast off, but the damage of losing your right to practice your religion, how do you measure those damages in terms of a typical type of lawsuit? So they wanted to encourage people to defend themselves, to defend their right. So they said, okay, if you win, then you can get your attorney fees paid by the governmental entity. The other thing.
So basically, the best part about this whole law, because I just want to make this a little more specific. The best thing about this whole law is the author knew that government can beat citizens, right?
Yeah.
They have government,
the need.
Unfortunately. That's right. The government takes our tax dollars by force and then uses it often on us, right?
Yes.
So this particular author of this law knew that could happen, which is exactly what happened in England, which is why our founders came over here, because this kind of thing happened in England all the time. The king, the king's attorneys and the king's, provinces would just, beat down the citizenry because they could. So that was the greatest thing about this particular law, is the fact that whoever it was that wrote it basically understood that the government is not our friend and can come after us, and this law can help regular citizens, give them a boost over the bar there, if you will, so that they can actually take care of themselves in court. I don't know if I kind of did any better.
Your term bar is really appropriate, because it is an economic bar. I struggle even now with some of the things I see the school board doing, and I can see exactly how to go after what they did, but parents are still so hesitant to come in, and because I need a plaintiff. Means I need an injured party, someone that was denied what was promised under the law. And I'm not getting a lot of parents coming in and saying, will you sue? I don't like this. It's hurting my kids. So can we sue? Because they see the trauma, the economically, retaliation from the school. They are afraid to bring a lawsuit. So we get a lot of things going on that shouldn't happen, and we should be able to stop them from happening. But they've pinned us in a corner with the way some of the laws are working. And
Maria, another point, the fact that this is our schools that we're talking about, they are teaching our children. Everything that they do is teaching our children. They're teaching our children in this instance that they will try to bulldoze your rights. That government will try to bulldoze the rights of people. The children are watching. They know what's going on, and they know that mom and dad are trying to stand up for them, and the government wants to bulldoze their rights. There is so much wrong with what is going on there. It just gets all over me. That's why I have high blood pressure from time to time.
All over the place. You really make, if I could just shift it a little bit from the lawsuit on the point you just made, Jill. I've been working with a lot of parents whose children are getting bullied in the school,
Yes.
which you think, and we have, again, good laws on that, a whole protocol of what the school's supposed to do when that happens. But they're not following the law again. So we've got parents trying to stand up, and they're getting upset with the principal. They're in the principal's office defending their children. And what I see happening to the parents who, are losing it with that principal. I mean, they're not being violent, but they can be. Their frustration shows in
Emotional. Yeah.
Right. Those parents are getting banned. I have 2 different parent clients right now that have been banned from their school properties. For those who know that follow the Owasa case, it's the same. They're using that same legal provision to go after the parents. But I don't think people are realizing that that affects them too, because
Right.
what those children are seeing is these principals and authority figures bullying, putting down their parents, degrading their parents' rights to protect them. They are very much diminished in their parent role by principals and administrators that are instituting those bans. And they're not being nice. They're not being professional. Every parent I know that's had to take on a principal talks about how the principal talks to them.
Right. Well,
and so
Make a point here on. Let me make a point here on the back of that point. So, because we want to talk specifically about Brice's lawsuit.
Right, yeah.
And I want to come back to the point that you just made, you and Julia both just made, because of what happened the last time we were in court. So why don't you just do this? Can you get us up to speed as to where we are? So we found the lawsuit, right? You engaged Brice and ROPE to go ahead and sue Stillwater Public Schools on behalf of Brice for his religious rights, right? For being kicked out of the school board meeting after he spoke scripture. And so we engaged Stillwater Public Schools. What happened? Because we went to court and, did the basic things. But the second time we went to court, which was the most important, what did the judge actually do for our lawsuit? Because he rendered a judgment, but it was very odd. So can you kind of bring us up to speed on that?
I talked to a lot of lawyers, and they agree with my characterization of how the school's council defended against this, the violation against Brice's their violation of his religious rights. Trying to think how to kind of start. At first they tried to claim that it came under that Governmental Tort Claim Act, and we didn't follow all the right procedures.
This is the Stillwater Public Schools attorneys that is arguing this.
Right. That's still
okay.
Yeah. So, but the Religious Freedom Act is very straightforward on its face. So he denied their argument that the case should be dismissed. So then we went to summary judgment because the evidence was there. What happened? Right on a video. So we didn't need to do any discovery or look for other documents. So both sides agreed, the video speaks for itself. But what they did was to claim that their interruption of Brice and escorting him out of the boardroom was because he wasn't speaking on the actual issue regarding boys and girls bathroom. And they said they had no intentions. It had nothing to do with the religious content of his speech. And then they pulled the video. They actually resubmitted the entire board meeting to show all these different other people who got up and spoke about their religious conviction and how this betrays, their religious beliefs. And therefore, those parts, accepting those people's speech without interrupting them, demonstrates they had no religious intent. There was no religious intention in what they did to Brice. Now, it is very.
Well, I think we posted the video, and I think anybody can argue that just simply wasn't the case, because when you look at the video, they kind of let him talk a little bit, and then suddenly once he starts talking, speaking scripture, they get all funky in their chairs, and they're like, oh, and having some. Yeah, I mean, it's the craziest thing. So, I mean, to me, that was way more justification for, a lawsuit, even just to watch these people act how they acted after he started, speaking in that direction. But anyway, so after that, you argued that point, the judge came back and made a ruling. And what was his ruling?
Well, he didn't say, basically all he said, for all of the arguments that the school attorney made, he found for the school. There was no explanation. There was no dividing up the argument. Say, well, this may be right, but this weighs more. When we're all kind of used to taking a quick look at a Supreme Court case that we think are significant, right? Especially religious freedom cases. But there's nothing to read here. And effectively, because I lost, I had to write the order. So, you pick up a few key sentences from the judge, what he rules verbally, and you put it in an order. But that doesn't give you any idea of how he thinks, or what was really wrong with our arguments. Why did our arguments lose and their arguments win? You try to understand the court's interpretation of a law by the written decision they make that lays out their analysis. We don't even have that. Nothing. Basically.
So that's what I was trying to say that was so weird. So the judge ruled, but instead of saying, I'm ruling for Stillwater Public Schools, and here's why I am XYZ, I'm ruling against ROPE and Chaffin because of XYZ. He didn't say anything. He basically just said, I'm ruling for Stillwater Public Schools, end of discussion, period. Right?
Right.
Is that about it?
That's it. I can't tell you how he thinks. I can only surmise what he thinks by his non-action. But that was really heart-wrenching, and I think irresponsible.
Well, and confusing, because okay, so you ruled again. At least why? You can at least say why. Okay, so now we know what happened there. So tell me, you filed an appeal, right?
Yes. Now, this appeal is very, it was new to me. Now, I haven't done any appeals. I did one brief for this Oklahoma Supreme Court on an election issue, but they have created a process to expedite appeals where if it's a summary judgment, they will go back and look at the case from the start, brand new, as if nothing was done on it. And they look at just the pleadings you've already filed, the written pleading. If we had a transcript, we could have submitted that. But they just take the record as is, they look at it, and then they make a decision on whether the decision of the trial court was accurate. And, I think, I don't want to be too bravado here, but this act is so understandable just on its face. You don't need a lot of other court cases to tell you what it says. And I think we've argued that very, very well in our briefs to the trial court. That's why we were all so surprised at the decision. And they didn't even answer some of the arguments we made. It's clear in all tradition of constitutional cases that the Constitution is supreme, and that you can't find a backdoor excuse to violate somebody's constitutional right by arguing like, oh, we were just following procedure. Procedural rules and procedural laws always supposed to be trumped by constitutional law. And that was and they kept saying, we didn't cut him off for religion. We cut him off because he wasn't on topic. And then they tried to show how we need to be able to do this in order to keep an orderly process in our board meetings.
So here's the funny thing. So did they let them talk for 5 hours or 5 minutes? No, they only let them talk for 3 minutes. What skin off of your nose is it that somebody rambles around for 3 minutes? I mean, sincerely, it's not the end of the world. So that, to me, that whole argument was just
ridiculous.
Spurry. It was ridiculous. It was just, so what? I mean,
they could have just sat there and rolled their eyes and not even listen, giving us 3 minutes. But the other thing too is, I want to like to point out this argument about, well, we let some people speak and we didn't. That is even more dangerous against our constitutional right. I argue, because if you look at them, they're very calm. The other speakers are very calm, and it's very personal. At least most of them I've seen. I'm trying to remember things. This is what I believe. It violates my faith. And these are the good, and I don't mean to demean their Christian, but progressives have taught us that we need to be polite. We need to be reserved.
Yes.
Don't talk about religion, and polite company. And so when we usually approach presenting a religious perspective of something, we act that way, very rational. But Brice is an evangelical, and he got up there and he preached the word of God, and anybody who's a part of the transgender debate understands. And even some reporters I know that reported on it recognized his Roman passage, as being a critical Christian platform for transgender and gay position in our society. They know that. They've acted very ignorant about what he was saying. But I think they were more upset over his preaching to them than they were about the content. Because I've compared him to the difference between John the Baptist and even Christ, in the way that, John the Baptist preached to Herod, you are sinning, you are a sinner, you need to repent. I mean, he was the first evangelical. In the spirit, and in speaking truth directly to power. And I think they were more like when they heard his tone and they started to hear how he was laying out how they sinned, that's what upset them. And that's part of religious practice.
Well, and that's, I mean, they don't have to agree with it, but that is, Brice's belief. And that was what the bottom line was. If you don't agree with it, that's fine. Who's to say? But that doesn't mean that you are going to shut me down for saying what my belief is. Okay. So you ended up, you filed an appeal. So we're still waiting on the appeal from the appeals court, but
We won't
let's
have
go
any
to
more
this.
hearings. We don't have any more oral arguments. It's on the paper. They will read it and they'll render a decision.
Okay, so we are at 9:40 and I want to make sure we get this in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So here's what, it's okay. So here's what ended up happening. So after the lawsuit was, after that particular judge, that first judge, what was his name again? I've lost my.
It was Kessler.
Okay, after Judge Kessler ruled against ROPE and Chaffin and for Stillwater Public Schools, then Stillwater Public Schools decides to file a lawsuit against ROPE and Brice Chaffin for court costs
And attorney fees.
and attorney's fees.
There are always two
So
different elements legally.
So then poor Maria has to put her courtroom hat back on again and go back in and try to defend ROPE and Brice against Stillwater Public Schools, saying that now we owed them because they, we lost the lawsuit. Now, all of a sudden, we had to pay their court costs. You did a phenomenal job of going in there and going, are you kidding me? Did you even read the law? So what happened when we actually went before the last judge, and I've forgotten his name too. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. What was the last judge's name?
I don't
Payne County
remember.
judge. Oh, okay. Well, at least it's not just me.
I am
Okay.
the worst on names. But
So
understand
what
this,
happened then?
but-
when
well,
we saw-
the headliner to that, Jenny, is 40. What was it?
$45,000.
$45,000.
Yeah.
That's what they said they spent on this lawsuit.
Tax dollars being spent to keep an apology from going out to a parent that had been wronged.
That's good.
But
Jenny. We forgot that. All we were asking for was an apology.
Exactly, Julia. Excellent. Thank you for that. Yes, everybody needs to make sure they understand that when we took Stillwater Public Schools to court, all we asked for was a public apology. So they literally had their attorneys, who, by the way, this particular complex of attorneys works for public schools. That's what they do. And don't forget, public schools don't have any money that some governmental agency doesn't give them, whether it's the feds or the state, and it's mainly the state. So now that Stillwater Public Schools use our tax dollars to sue ROPE and Brice for $54,000 for attorney's fees and court costs, so they didn't have to apologize to Brice for removing him from the podium and not allowing him to speak. In the world of ridiculousness, that has to be a number one piece of ridiculousness. That is
They could have paid a teacher for a year.
Oh my gosh, for sure. Just to fight a simple apology. So anyway, I'm sorry, Maria.
Well,
we went
no,
to
but
court
just
and
remember-
you argued.
Well, I was just saying that what you're saying. They argued that we needed to pay attorney fees to protect the taxpayer, if you remember, because otherwise the taxpayer is paying their attorney fees. So we're protecting our taxpayers by going after Brice and ROPE, and congratulations. I mean, for all the times we've been working together, I didn't realize you were such a big dollar corporation, Jenny.
Yeah. We forget to ask for money most of the time, and sometimes we get gas money for traveling across the state, and that's about it.
That was so funny. So basically what happened was the attorney for, and what is his name? Let's make his name famous.
Uh,
Fred what?
Is it high?
I can't remember anyway.
Well, I remember, but I can't remember exactly how he says it.
Pronounces it. Well, just give it a shot. Fred.
Hegenbart, Hegenbart.
Okay. So as he was standing up trying to get the judge to make us pay him $54,000, his attorneys, right, his law firm, while he's saying that, he says, and don't forget, this is not just about Mr. Chaffin. This is about this. I can't even say it with a straight face. This nonprofit corporation, ROPE, Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment, and they should be able to pay this kind of, they should be responsible for this. I remember I was in the courtroom and I almost started laughing. I literally almost was in trouble for, because I was going to say something. So yeah, so stupid. But guess what? The important thing was, what did the judge say about the case? You argued beautifully, and he said what?
Well, the law says what the law says. And as I told you, it was clear that the state entity does not get attorney fees. And in fact, they completely ignored the second provision of that, about attorney fees that I mentioned when I was praising the law. The governmental entity has to prove that we were being frivolous or fraudulent. We were lying about the case. And I call it the ambulance. He was trying to argue we're sort of ambulance chaser, just going after the money, which we didn't ask for any money. But he was trying to indicate that that's the kind of lawsuit we had. And if that's the case, then the statute allows you to get the state to be reimbursed for their court costs, the filing fee, the cost of getting a process server. But it doesn't allow the recovery of attorney fees. It's clear in the act. So they didn't even quote that statute. They claim we were frivolous, and we were frivolous because we lost the case, not because we were making up anything. And so the judge found we weren't frivolous, we weren't fraudulent in filing the lawsuit, so they don't get court costs. And the court, like I said, the judge specified that statute doesn't give you attorney fees. It's clear. And I think it's worth pointing out, we filed for sanctions for them for filing that request for attorney fees, because they were making up the law in their application for it. They tried to bring in a law that doesn't even apply to the facts of this case, saying it allows them to get attorney fees. And they actually quoted the section of that other statute and added the word school district, because it was talking about reimbursing teachers or other, administrators, where a parent might sue them because of how they disciplined their kid. So it was very clear they were trying to protect teachers from, those parents that we know going, don't touch my kid, whatever. That's what they were. It had nothing to do with our kind of case. And because they only used employees and teachers, they never said anything about the school district. So they dropped a word, a very advantageous place to change the meaning and application of that statute. And then they got up and argued, that was a mistake. Tim
Ryland made a post just a second ago, made a comment here, and he said the apology to them is money. And it never even hit me until I read what he said a second ago. Think about, they had to fight this as hard as they possibly could, because if the district had to apologize to Brice and to ROPE for kicking him out for not following his letting him, have his religious
Expression.
Expression. Thank you. I don't know where I'm going with this today. I guess I got so excited about this, but if they had to apologize for that, think of that. They would literally show that they are wrong. They are treating parents and community members improperly. And that, I think, is, Tim's right. That's bigger than money to them, because it would affect the whole way that they do business and talk down to parents and take over the community and all of those kinds of things. So I really do. I hadn't even thought about that until I saw him write that. But I think that's, a number one. What do you think?
Oh, when you just close your eyes and imagine a clip where they're having to say they're sorry about how they treated a religious parent. That would be
Gold.
well, I'm thinking, from a news perspective and a public relations perspective, that would harm the teachers union. It would harm not just our local school board association, but the national one.
Right.
They had sort of had to do that for the whole national team,
Yeah.
See, and that's what's so sick about the whole thing. And if more parents would, and it's hard to say this because, now I'm not a person who is fearful of other people at all, but I know that there are parents out there who are worried about what would happen to their kid if they spoke out, or
Right.
how they would be treated if they spoke out. So I understand that there are a lot of parents out there that are not willing for whatever reason to really speak out on this. But I think if we win on appeal, which I think you think that we probably will, and the reason why I want to say that is, or I want to ask you this: do you feel like you can say something about what some people told you at the last when we?
Well, it is.
Do you think you can say anything that?
We have some good conservative lawyers. The bar itself, I think, has been fairly acknowledged that they are left leaning at least, and liberal. I don't think liberal is as bad of a word as progressive.
Yeah.
We got a lot of liberals that are that are moving to the right as they see what progressives are about, but for the most part. So some of the, so a conservative attorney that practices in Payne County did make the observation that the judge we had was very liberal.
The first one.
Yes, the first one, Seidler, and that he would have surmised that there was no way for us to win that lawsuit, no matter what, because of his political thinking, and that makes it really sad, because it's judges like that are, and we see it when we look at a lot of the federal cases. They are destroying the rule of law. You should
say what you want about Trump, but I think that was one thing that Trump really understood, is that activist judges are the ones that are really ruining this country. Because if you have an activist judge like the one who, we were up in front of in the beginning, we lost that case, and had it not been for your persistence, where would we be now?
Well, I'm really disappointed that even if you have a philosophical framework you want to operate under, you can't dismiss the individual person or people that are in front of you. And so even if you think they act legitimately, well, first, the judge should be cognizant that he knows that he didn't follow the law. There's no way under the Religious Freedom Act that judge didn't know he was countering what the law really said to do. Second, now we didn't go with attorney fees in front of him, but but people have shared, or what someone has shared, lawyer, was that if we'd if we had the attorney fees issue in front of that judge, we would have lost. And you got to look at Brice standing in front of you and think about, I mean, the guy apparently had no idea who makes up ROPE. It's not a huge membership. And it's not a national organization. It's a group of members who used a little bit, a little bit of an organizational framework in order to exercise political power. They're not making money. They're not a corporation. And you got to look and say, what would this do to those families? There was no compassion in that judge.
No.
None at all for the people who were standing in front of him asking for relief. And I'm just so disappointed in the judicial system.
Yeah.
Right.
The way the judicial system is evolving. Now,
so before we run out of time, Maria, I'm sorry to interrupt. Before we run out of time, let's tell everybody where we are now and if there's anything the public can do to help.
Pray. I mean,
Absolutely.
Every time we went in front of the judge, you all, your followers, we'd ask for prayers. And I know that God put, what I should say, that was God. Because I've told people many times, I've been an in-house lawyer. I know my energy stuff. I can get up and speak on it. But this is a new space for me to be exercising my legal skills. And I don't do it without a lot of prayer. And when I'm writing, I'm praying for God to show me what I need to say to open that judge's eyes. And I will also sort of be honest. I think that God is exercising in the fact that we lost at the trial court, because this allows us to go to appeal. And I'm praying that those judges are in his hands, that he's whispering in their ear, because he knows that's where our best decision is going to come from. Not just for Brice, but for establishing case law that's going to support the Religious Freedom Act for whatever governmental entity is being sued. That we're going to have some good case law that's going to support what I think is a very good law, very well structured. And had those two provisions on attorney fees not been expressed in the statute, then we'd all be a lot poorer today.
For sure. Holy cow. Because I've got $54,000 just lying around.
Yeah. We'd be holding our, crowdfunding hat out, but I just, for 1 second, I would like to use this case to impress upon people. You don't want a law that is just about the topic that you're worried about. I would say we put in our petition on this law a violation of the parents' rights. And the school board came back on us that there's no waiver of sovereign immunity. There's no right to sue in that statute. And it doesn't have any attorney fees addressed. So if you take a suit under the Parents' Bill of Rights, you're going to have to win. Otherwise, otherwise you could be at risk of paying the other side's attorney fees. And those are simple things that we could be putting into our statutes that we believe are there to protect us. Doesn't do you any good to have a law you can't go to court on.
Right.
Well, and that's a great point. So right now, when do you expect the appeals court to rule on our suit?
I just got from the other side, because usually when it's a pretty clear-cut case, then the judge, the losing party on a motion or something writes the order.
Okay.
So Fred has written, or the school board's outside counsel has drafted an order where he lays out what was decided, and then I approve it, and then it goes to the judge to issue. That I just got that back to him today.
Okay.
To the outside counsel today with my changes, and I could say a lot about that. How he wrote.
Well, we're already over time, so
Yeah, I won't. But just
We'll
say
have to have you back.
yeah.
So anyway, I think what'll happen is they're going to wait for that order to be issued, and that the case is actually closed on all issues on the trial court level, and then they'll come together. So hopefully,
well, so keep us informed, and so everybody who's interested, obviously, let's pray for a positive outcome, for this lawsuit. And Maria, I can't tell you thank you enough for being with us today. And I can't tell you thank you enough for just being persistent enough to stick with it. And I can't tell you thank you enough for giving your time and effort so freely when there are other attorneys out there that are not willing to stop and help parents, certainly pro bono at all. So you are to be lauded, frankly, in my opinion, for what you're doing, because there just isn't another person in your space. And all I can say is, attorneys out there, I kind of hope Maria is putting you to shame. And if you're a retired attorney and you have the ability to do this and you're not stepping in to help parents, I'm going to call you part of the problem. So there you go. I've thrown down the gauntlet for you. I'm hoping that we see some other attorneys step up.
Well, I would like to do a shout out to a friend, Rayanne Toby, who is a solo petitioner, and she has been so generous with, anytime I call her with a question, she handles it for me. She
good,
and so a lot of my success is because she kept me from stepping into a minefield. So I'd like to thank Rayanne Toby.
Well, that's very nice. And you've done a great job. And again, thank you. And thanks for being on with us. I'm going to say goodbye to you, or we're going to say goodbye to you for now. And then Julia has a story we're going to finish up with, even though we're a little bit long. But again, thanks so much for being with us this morning, Maria. And thanks for all you do.
Thank you. And you can follow a lot of what I'm doing on Legal Overwatch Facebook page.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Maria. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you
All
for
right.
the invitation.
Okay. Bye-bye. Oop. I'm having trouble figuring out how to get out now.
Well, I'll start talking.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Yes. Tell us what happened yesterday.
So this was hilarious. I posted the question on Facebook, on our Facebook page, Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment Facebook page. What if teachers secretly started baptizing kids at school and hid it from parents? What would Educrat's reaction be? We have so far, let's see here, we've had 368 comments, 137 shares, and the last time I was able to read the comments, none of them had picked up on the keywords, which are secretly and hid it from parents. They're not there, just in a Tasmanian devil tailspin about baptizing kids.
That's so funny, because when I read that at first, because I didn't know you posted it, and it popped up and I read it and I was like, well, I know exactly where you're going with that. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with baptizing. The point of the matter is, how many administrators are allowing teachers to basically preach to their children and then tell them that they can't tell their parents.
Exactly. Which, like I said, I would be against this. I just asked the question that way because the key words, like I said, is secretly and hiding it from parents. That is the issue. I wouldn't be for them baptizing kids behind their parents' backs either. But you would,
No.
but the reactions on our page are hilarious. I mean, it just goes on and on. From one of them said that because I capitalized to all the words, that I must be schizophrenic. And I mean, it's just the ridiculous comments have been hilarious. And Tim,
Well, I've known you a lot of years, and I can verify that you're not schizophrenic.
yeah, right. Might be a lot of things, but that's not one of them.
Not one of them. Well, so today you're actually going to post something different, right?
Yeah, I'm going to have another post today, and we'll see what happens. This has been, I have just had, if I want to chuckle, just go to our Facebook page and read some comments. It has been very, very entertaining.
Well, I think the sad thing is because, though, I mean, this is obviously my personal opinion, and all of us in ROPE are Christian people. So, I mean, you have that, but I tend to think basically that, this isn't about, I mean, it's like people are so scared of Christianity. And this is becoming a real time period in which Christians actually are. You look at, the cake baker in Colorado, they're taking him to court yet again. I mean, we really are in this time period in America, of all places, which was established on the basis of religious tolerance. Christians are being persecuted. And this whole getting on there and freaking out because you wrote the word baptism on there, I think predicates that exact notion, is that they're not even thinking about, oh my gosh, I don't want any teacher or administrator saying something to my kid that's not supposed to get back to me and hiding it from me. They're just specifically, baptism. Oh, these Christians are terrible. This should be upsetting to everybody, because do not forget that, and the Jews know this very well, what happened in Germany, because once they pick on a group of people to, dogpile on, it's not just that group. It falls off onto other groups once they realize they can get away with it. So here in America, we have absolute religious tolerance. That was what this country was basically formed on. And if you don't want to be a Christian, or you don't like that, that's fine with me. You do what you want. I will preach Jesus's word, because that's me as a Christian, and I hope to save you so that you can go to heaven in my particular belief system. But if you don't like that, that's fine. So we have this whole lawsuit with Brice was predicated on religious tolerance. What you just did yesterday was predicated on religious tolerance, or it ended up being because people didn't even understand the point of the post. Right. So, I don't know. It's so frustrating and sad and concerning, that we are where we are, So I don't know, but we are over by 8 minutes. So I don't know if we just want to finish out and gab until 1:10.
Yeah. So everybody should get on our newsletter. We kind of try on a weekly basis, try to just capture the things that are going on for the week. And I've got several great resources that I tap into, and just to keep us up to date on what's going on, mostly in Oklahoma, but occasionally in other states as well. And tell your friends, share our podcast if you've enjoyed it, or even if you haven't. Apparently sharing on Facebook.
Dang it.
A lot when they don't like you, but that has been funny. But yeah, follow us on Twitter. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Rumble, YouTube, And we've got some amazing things on YouTube. Jenny, I hadn't even been on our YouTube page in a while.
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff.
There's some
Yeah.
gold on there, and
Mhm.
it'll tell you
Yeah.
basically our credentials, because
Yeah.
we've been in this game for a long time, and things
Yeah.
that people are just discovering now, we were talking about 10 and 12 years ago.
That's
And,
exactly right. Yeah.
The common core sexual ed thing that I used to carry around, and it was thick, and I used to carry it around all over the state when we would go speak places, and it's been going on a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's true. I mean, we have things on our Facebook page that are there from, I think, 2008, when we actually tried to start doing school board candidate forums. So, yeah. Oh, and then Dana, let me just put this up here. Dana Mooney, who is the president of the chapter of Moms for Liberty in Canadian County, wanted to just make sure that if you see something, say something. Oh my, Dana, you sound just a little bit like the government, but okay. And if you're too afraid to do that, send it to one of them. So you can find Dana. Hey, just post really fast where they can find you on Facebook, so that we can, and I'll just pop that up on the screen. But they're Moms for Liberty Canadian County. They do have a Facebook page. So if she doesn't have time to do that before we get off of here, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Yes, that's how that works, isn't it? All right. So before we get off of here, Friday, again, we're live at 9:00 in the morning. We will be talking. This is our week to talk lawsuits, parents against schools. So we will be talking to our own board member, Michael Grande, who will be here with his counterpart, Emily Geraltz. Sorry, Emily, I almost forgot again. Emily Geraltz, and they will be here discussing the lawsuit that the group of Edmond parents filed against Edmond Public Schools. And I know you're going to want to be here for that. So make sure you come back and see us at 9:00 on Friday. But if you don't make us live, make sure that you follow us. You can pull us up on our Twitter feed, which is Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment. And the same thing on Facebook, and the same thing on YouTube. And I will post them up on Rumble today, and we will eventually figure out how to make that go live. But until then, join us on all those formats. And as Julie said, please share and get involved. So thanks again for being with me again today, Julie. I love doing this with you.
All right, me too.
All right, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.
Bye-bye.